Whiskey and Wade going all the way. What up, world? Welcome back to another episode of the Whiskey and Wade Show with me, your host, Tommy Mac. And Tyrone's currently in Germany at his training camp for his big fight against Harlem Eubank on the 8th of March. 7th or 8th, I can't remember, but it's 1 a.m. It's Friday night anyway. So make sure you all tune in if you're looking to travel. We'll be very appreciative of the traveling support to get behind our man. Also, I'm fighting on the 1st of March, fighting Big Stephen Ward in the SSC Arena. So if you want tickets, just shoot me a wee DM. We'll get them all sorted. And we are coming to you today from Lab Fitness. If you want to get your fitness up through the roof, lose weight, get in shape, 2025 be your year, this is where you need to be. So hit the website, labfitnessbelfast.co.uk. So, another thing, we're in association with the one and only Our Kings Competitions, the #1 competitions page in the world. Make sure you hit them up, get a ticket, throw your name in the hat to try and win a prize. Now, all the introductions are done. We're joined today by a very, very special guest. This man directed probably the most impactful film of the year. That's the Kneecap movie. Folks, welcome to the show, Rich Peppiatt. Thanks for coming, Rich.
Cheers, mate. Appreciate that.
So, like I said,
most impactful film of the year. It's only 3
well,
weeks old, mate.
Of 2024, 2024. But hey, it's still rippling right through into 2025. No, we're only in. When you were making this movie, did you know it was going to be what it was, or what it is?
Well, look, I mean, you'd be a bit of a wanker if you sat there going, yeah, I was thinking about making this movie and I knew it was going to be fucking brilliant from day one. Like, no, I mean, there's so many, making a film is such a huge undertaking where there's so many things that can go wrong. There's so many variables that you're always kind of with a bit of a wing and a prayer, hoping that the vision that you've got for it, you can see through to the finishing line. And that takes a lot of... a lot of your kind of life force to do that. But no, I think we, from the get-go, I thought it had the potential to be a very special project. And as we got further and further down the line, script stage into production, and I was like, this is all coming together pretty well. Yeah, look, there's blips along the way. There's good days, there's bad days. But yeah, and I mean, as much as it's always hard to judge yourself because you're so close to it, but it was all the people around were like, mate, this could be fucking good. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So that was exciting. And then obviously when you start getting into things like Sundance, which for a film like ours is like the biggest, festival in the world for independent film, you kind of go, right, well, it's obviously not that shit. If Sundance is saying yes to it and they get like 80,000 applications, something ridiculous. And then, since then it's just been fucking bedlam.
Yeah. How did you come? Like, what gave you the idea to make a movie about Kneecap?
Well, I mean, I had the idea for a couple of years before I met them. Like the music biopics, so many music biopics, and they were always kind of the same thing. You kind of knew the beats of it. It was like, the rise of someone or a band, and then there'd be this collapse. Someone would probably freaking end up in a hole with drugs, and then there'd be the rise of them again. And I was like, and it's always when the person isn't dead or nearly dead at the end of their career and, telling their story with rose-tinted spectacles. And I was like, could you actually do a music biopic in a completely different way? And that would be that you do it where you follow a band that isn't famous and you follow them almost in real time on the rise. Yeah. And I was like, I don't even know if that's possible. Like, how would you do that as not a documentary, but as a feature film? And then I met Kneecap and was like, yes, these are the perfect petri dish for that. And because a lot of local bands, they don't get any better, they break up, it's a hard road being at that low level, right? And so the success rate's very small. But there was something about Kneecap from the first time I saw them down at the Limelight 2019. I was like, I think it's something about these boys.
Were you just at a show and they were featured on the card? Or
that was it. I just went to one of their shows, and I'm into my hip hop, and it was just, I think I just thought I'd pop down, just went down on my own, and I just moved to Belfast like 2 weeks beforehand. I didn't know fucking anyone. So I was just
He's,
there on
gonna
my
go to a
jacks.
rap
I was
show and
just
just
there on my jacks, just for it's only a mile and a half from my house. So I just wandered down, had a couple of pints, and they were throwing baggies of white powder into the crowd. And I thought, this is interesting. By the time I got through the second bag, I realised it was flour. Shat a sourdough the next day.
Oh, you want my money back?
Dare they? Quality of gear in Belfast sucks.
And on that night of the show, did you get talking to them after?
No. I mean, I spent months trying to
track them down.
I emailed them and no response. Followed that up a few times and was getting nothing. I now know 6 years later they're fucking terrible communicators. You know what I mean? They don't get back to anyone about anything. But like anything, you keep going, and eventually I bumped into one of their ex-girlfriends, and and I was like, right, you must have their number. So give me the number, and she did, and I called Nisha up and said, mate, like, I'm the bloke who's been emailing you. And he was like, a lot of people email us. and I was like, right, well, anyway, meet me for a pint. And I'm actually convinced him to meet me for a pint. And so it was him and Liam. JJ wasn't there that first night. And we sat down in Madden's, and eyed me suspiciously across the table. And who the fuck is this English bloke who wants to meet us? And I sort of said, look, I've got this idea. They were like, we don't want to do a documentary. Everyone wants to do a documentary. We're not, no. And I was like, it's not a documentary. It's like a feature film, and I want you to be in it. I want you to play yourselves. And they were like, what? And I said, no, that's what I want to do. And they were intrigued enough for us to keep talking. Yeah. And I mean, that night we ended up back at their house on Hawthorne Street, their house at the time. It may well have resembled something like the garage scene in the film. And that was kind of the shortcut to becoming friends. They were like, I think that they say now it was a test to see, am I a freaking peeler? And no peeler's gonna do much drugs, right? And then also, can I keep pace with them? And to be fair, I had to wind back the years. I had to dig deep, and I was like, right, and I rolled back home about 7 o'clock the next morning. It's like a Tuesday
did
as
you
well.
End up in the doghouse?
Well, yeah, my wife. Fuck have you been? I was like working.
Kneecap.
Well, the thing was, there was a degree of moving to Belfast. My wife's from Andytown, and there was a degree of moving from London was about trying to have a bit more of a steady life, get out of my partying. In London,
2 weeks in.
Well, exactly. And so she's like, it's not an accident that within 2 weeks of moving to Belfast, you fall in with the biggest caners in the fucking city. And I'm like, it is. She's like, it's not. It's like, you've sought that out. You've even if you don't consciously done it, subconsciously, you've gone, who are the biggest messes in this city? I'll tell you what, I'll start hanging out with them. And so, yeah, that led me astray. But, it was, there is something about partying with people that brings you close together very quickly. It's a shortcut, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It's a shortcut to getting to know people. And I think for me as well, it's like when you're trying to learn their story and what makes them tick, there's the stories people will tell you, in an interview. There's the stories people will tell you after a few pints.
Yeah.
And there's the stories people will tell you after 10 pints, 2 grams, and a couple of lines of ketamine. Yeah. And I was like, I need those stories, right? I need to be there for those stories.
I admire your dedication to the
look, it's a tough life. Someone's got to do it, though.
So you said you left London because you were partying too much.
Wow, look, it wasn't. Yeah. It was part of the kind of thinking was, as much as for me as anything, I was up for a bit of a lifestyle change. Yeah. The story as old as time that you start having kids, and London's a very expensive place. All the family, my wife's family were here. They live in Andytown, and I mean, I've been coming here for 15 years at that point, and it was a city I've always loved, and I thought, what, I think I can make a life here.
Whereabouts in London are you from?
Well, I lived in Highbury for 10 years. I'm a massive Arsenal fan, so I lived in the old Highbury football stadium. Like which was very hard to get me out of, because my address was like 15 East Stand, Highbury Stadium, and I was like, that is the best address in the world. You know, you get someone called, you know, you'd be like on the phone to the bank and they'd be like, "Can we just check your address?" And you'd say it and they'd be like, "You actually live in the fucking stadium?"
Rich,
And you'd have like a 10-minute conversation about like, yeah, and they'd be like, "Oh, did you see the game at the weekend?" I had like, I don't know how much you know about Arsenal, but there's an old player called Charlie George, famous Arsenal player. He's in his 60s now, lived above me. So you get in the lift
Yeah.
and
You
like
say
on a
Charlie
Sunday
George.
morning, and he'd be there and he'd be like, "Oh, hello, Charlie, how you doing? See the game yesterday?" And then you'd be having a chat with an
Yeah.
Arsenal legend
So
on the
you were
lift
loving that
down.
as an
Oh, fucking,
Arsenal
I
fan.
absolutely loved that. You know, you'd walk through. Yeah, it was great. Like even like the it was all a listed building, so it was all Art
Yeah,
Deco,
yeah.
and the handles on the window were cannons, and it was like an
Brilliant.
Arsenal fan's wet dream.
Just you gave it all up for Andy
I
Town.
gave it all up. I gave it all up for Andy Town.
So yeah, you got to know the lads and you start putting the film together. But that's not the first movie that you've done.
No, I mean, a first film that I did was a documentary called One Rogue Reporter that was about me going after tabloid newspaper editors and delving into their private lives and hiring paparazzis to follow them around and generally making their lives miserable. And that was on Netflix for a couple of years. Yeah, that was that. I was in that. Like I was the tabloid hack who was running around chasing after him. And so it was a kind of a weird
Was
hybrid.
that like a I haven't seen it, but was that a real documentary or
No, do your
a
research, mate.
mockumentary?
You know, the research. Fuck's
I
sake,
don't do
fuck
no
this.
research. I like it to be raw. You know, this is Hawthorne Street. You know what I mean?
No,
Have a
look,
whiskey here and tell me more.
No, look. To be honest, it's only really available these days. I think it's you can buy it through my Vimeo channel. So there you go. Get on there. Get on there, people. There you go. There's cameras, Vimeo. That Hugh Grant's in it. Steve Coogan's in it. But look, for me, it was that was the first film I ever made, and that was a real baptism of fire of learning how to make film. Like it was me and a mate basically made it, and that was it. And it did very well for the sense that it got picked up by Netflix and things like that. But yeah, that was my first foray into filmmaking. I fell in love with it, and from then on was always making films, so short films, adverts, whatever. But always wanted to do like a narrative feature. That was always where my heart was, scripted stuff. And Kneecap. I guess I was sort of getting mid-30s when I met Kneecap. And I had it in my head that I needed to, by the time I was 40, get that film made. Like, if it didn't happen by the time I was 40, I was like, it ain't going to happen. Because I'd had the knockback a few times. I tried to get things done. And, for one reason, couldn't get the money together, whatever. And so I thought, if it doesn't happen soon, it's not going to happen. So I think people could see with the Kneecap film that I was like, I'm going to make this one way or another. I ain't taking no for an answer. I'm just going to bully boy my way through this. And luckily it worked out.
Tell you what, you have some pulling power. You got Hugh Grant on your first movie, and then in this one you got
Fassbender.
Fassbender. Like how were you able to get him for the Kneecap movie?
I mean, to be fair, it wasn't. People always think it must be like he's someone's cousin or something. Like how's he? But it really was a matter of there's only a handful of what you call like top tier Irish actors who speak Irish. Right. And so I'd read an article somewhere that he spoke Irish. So I was like, well, he's an option. And, you think that he played Bobby Sands in Hunger. Yeah. And he's a legend up here for that. Do you know what I mean? The depiction, something that, great movie. And, people really respect the way he went about that, the dedication to it, to losing the weight and all of that sort of stuff. So I think chatting to the lads, he was number one straight away. It was like, bang, like if we could get Fassbender, that'd be cool. And also because his character is almost like a guy who could have been in the cell next to Bobby Sands, but didn't go on the hunger strike. Do you know what I mean? Didn't make that sacrifice. And maybe that's what was driving him in his sort of zealotry all those years later, was a sense of guilt that, you know what I mean? He hadn't made the sacrifice. He hadn't gone there. So I was like, if I could, we got Fassbender, that'd be cool. And then we sent him the script. And like a week later, I got a text message, a WhatsApp, saying, hi, it's Michael, can you chat? And I was like, fuck's Michael? I don't know fucking Michael. And I thought it was like a spam. I was about to just block it, and then I literally bowed it and I was like, hang on, couldn't be Michael Fassbender, could it? And I was like, well, I better not block it. I mean, like...
Did they have a WhatsApp picture?
No, it was just
No?
blank.
Yeah.
So this was it.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was, I didn't. I was like, oh, God. I'll take the gamble. So I went back and went like, yeah. And then next thing I know, boom, my phone lit up and it was a video call. Right? Okay. Bang. And then there's Michael Fassbender's face there in the back of a car
That's
in
unreal.
Germany, and was like, hey, how you doing? And we had like a 10-minute chat. He's like, look, I'd never heard of Kneecap. And so there's got the script, love the script, love the boys, love the music. I want to be involved. And that it was that simple. There was no sort of like, there was no argy-bargy about money. He just, he didn't do it for the money.
Yeah.
It was very much a passion project. And I think that's the thing is, well, with all actors, is they want stuff that they feel resonates with them in some way, right?
Especially him being like a Gale Gore as well.
Yeah,
That's something
yeah.
that,
I mean, he probably wouldn't say that he's a Gale Gore. I mean, he's quite rusty. He'd done it at school, so he's quite
Yeah.
rusty. But, it wasn't a matter of he could just turn up for a week. He had to learn, not the language in the sense he had to learn the Ulster dialect.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
'cause
he's
it's
got,
different down south, yeah.
it's different down south. He had to learn that dialect. He had JJ, who used to be an Irish
Yeah.
teacher, teaching
Teaching him.
him. So there was a lot of work he had to put in. And, it obviously just upped everything, having him around and just having that level of talent involved. You do pinch yourself a little bit when you're looking down the monitor and you're seeing Michael Fassbender there. He's been like worked with Tarantino, Scorsese, all the big boys. And you're thinking, what the fuck is he working with me for? Do you know what I mean? Like, you start going, I wonder if I'm doing this right. I tell you, I said to him one day, we're having a pint, and I said to him, look, don't take this the wrong way, but like, you've obviously worked with all these big directors, and is it different, like, with everyone? Like, do I do things very different? I'm like basically going, like, do I do it wrong? Like, compared to these? And they're like, you said, mate, everyone is completely different. And that's the weird thing about directing is you never, like, you would train with other boxers, right? Okay, so you would have an understanding about other boxers' box, their training methods, their ring work, whatever, right? Now, directors, we don't share the same. You're always on your own. So unless you've come up in a sort of formal kind of way where you've maybe been an assistant and you've worked your way up, so you spent a lot of time watching directors, then most directors just come out of fucking nowhere and they suddenly go, because it's a thing, it's a job, like you can just go, yeah, I'm a director. As long as you know what I mean, and that's it. And then you can get the money and do then you're the director, right? And so you don't really have any idea anyone does anything, and that's why films are so different as well. That's kind of the beauty of it too. If every director did everything exactly the same way, you'd have a lot of films that look exactly the bloody same, right? So that is the beauty of it. But certainly you have moments where you go, fuck, am I just doing this an absolute arse about tit way? Do you know what I mean?
At least Michael Fassbender, he was able to tell you.
That's it. So anyway.
So in regards to the Kneecap movie, Tyrone has never forgiven me because you had
I knew this was going to come up.
Right? And the role, the wee characters that me and Tyrone were meant to be in, they're actually in the movie loads. And Tyrone can't even bring himself to watch the movie. I was like, Tyrone, you want to see it? This is fucking class. Like,
can he not?
He can't even watch it.
Oh, jeez.
But the characters that we had in it, they were like working with Fassbender, or they had scenes with Fassbender and all. It was so good. So now you're here, Rich. Do you think it was a huge mistake? Me and Tyrone not doing it?
No, right. So hang on. Let's tell that. I think for the listeners, viewers, tell the story. Right, is that I approached the boys and said, I've got these 2 roles, and I'd like you to. I think we met first at a party, didn't we?
I think you met Tyrone at something, and then we met you down in the pub.
I think it was after a Kneecap. It might have been after the Failure or something like that. Anyway, we ended up back at one of the lads' house or some party, and I said, look, I've got these 2 roles, and I think that you boys could be good for them, right? And then we met up in Cultureland, and I said, look, they're there for you if you want them. And you said, yeah, you'd do it. And then when it came down to the came down to it, they just both shat themselves and couldn't.
No.
No,
no, Fassbender. I don't know if I'm ready for
they
that.
just couldn't get on set. They were standing there and they just couldn't. They couldn't do it. They were just like shaking in a. No, they the diaries didn't line up. They had I think you had a live podcast.
We had a live podcast, and of all the days, it was that day that you couldn't do it, and then it was the first one, and we'd sold it out. So I sat down and I was talking to Tyrone, and I was saying, I think we should just stick with our own thing because we're trying to build our own brand in this whiskey and white. He said, but it's up to you. Like, I'll just stand by. That's what Tyrone said. He said, I'll stand whatever you think. And I says, well, I think we've sold out the show, and if we cancel it before it even, it's our first one. If we cancel the first one, like, what does that say about us? So let's just go ahead with ours. We'll ask Rich if they can move some dates around. Hopefully they can, but it's like, surely Fassbender, he could friggin' make some adjustments for the lads.
It was a nightmare.
They says they were so rigid, you know.
Well, I tell you what it was. It was just it's so complicated putting together a filming schedule of things. It's like, especially with someone like Fassbender, who's got I'm giving you like a week, and that's it.
It was only one day. We won it off, and
it was the one day. Anyway, it for whatever reason, it didn't work out. But you asked me, do I think you made a mistake? No, because you're quite right. Like, you know, you're doing your thing. That you've got a great podcast that you were trying to establish, and that's your thing, right? And you know, you've shown dedication to doing that thing, and I respected it because, you know, that you people have bought tickets. You were, you know, and you were like, no, we're going to stick with what we're doing.
Yeah,
it's fine. It caused a pain in my fucking ass.
So, Red's apologies.
No, but here, you know, to give due respect to the lads who stepped in and did it, they were fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you know, that's life. Is that these were two lads who, you know, were early in their career looking for, you know, to get a role, and
they're they're in the acting
exactly.
Because I actually met the guy who took mine, and my spot. He come up to me and he says, "Mate, I owe you a big thanks." And I says, "What for?" He must have me confused with someone else. He shook my hand. He says, "No, you knocked back a role in Kneecap, and they give it to me. So thanks very much."
It's good to see those boys. They're pushed on. They've you know, they're getting other roles, and as you say, that's the career. That's their career, right? That's a career they're trying to establish. So I'm happy. I'm really happy for them that's given them a platform to you know, push on and get other stuff, and in a way that, you know, obviously for you it was a fun little thing, because there's lots of things in the film which are like little in jokes, right? We didn't want to get rid of those, and it was like having you two in those roles was a thing for people in Belfast to be like, you know, do you know what I mean? It was a fun thing for and there's lots of little things like that in the film that are just kind of for local people.
Yeah, it's such a great film, and when I watched it, I was like, maybe me and Tyrone could have killed that role. But like I said, before when I was having these negotiations and discussions with Tyrone, he was going, just, it's up to you, whatever you think. And I was like, well, I think we should just focus on our own thing. And then afterwards, he was like, fuck me, like, I wish we had done that movie. I was like, why didn't you speak up, man?
Hey, look, with life is one of those things. Well, it's done, isn't it? It's like there's no point in it. I wouldn't even bother really giving it much thought, because it's like, you know, it didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
It's you know, we had few days ago, you know, people say to me, how you feeling about the Oscar thing? I'm like, it's done. Do you know what I mean? We didn't get the nomination in the end, and you just go, it's done. 5 minutes later, it's fine, because it's you can't turn back the clock. You can't, you know, you push forward. That's it.
How did you think you were going to get the nod for the Oscar, or?
We did. I mean, to be fair, you'd asked us a few weeks ago, would have said puncher's chance, right? But then with the BAFTA, with the BIFTA nominations and the BAFTA nominations and the IFTA nominations, it was like we were picking up big nominations, right? And suddenly the odds started narrowing on us, and we went from, like, you know, 20-1 to an 8-1.
Yeah.
Over and that put us, like, you know, the people who got it in the end, who I think kind of nudged us out, they were a 45-1 bet.
Who was it?
A film called Girl with a Needle, which is a Danish film about baby kidnapping.
Jeez.
but in black and white, and it's 3 hours long. So it was it's a very different film to Kneecap. Let's just say that. I mean, I haven't actually seen it, and it's funny because apparently it's a really dark, kind of miserable film. But the director, lovely guy, really, he's a great laugh, and you're like, how did you do a 3-hour film about baby kidnapping? But you know, look, it's there's no shame in falling at that final hurdle. You know, so we fancied would get one nomination, be it the best song, be it the international film. Disappointed. To be honest, it was the thing was that Trevor Burney, one of the producers, he said to me a couple of days before, he said, look, I'm thinking about putting together like a thing at Madden's, like a live thing where, you know, we can get, the boys are in London at the moment recording an album, and I said, we'll get them on a screen. We'll have another screen with it live. Yeah. We'll get all the media down. We'll get all supporters, you know, people who've been involved in the film, invite everyone down. And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, no, I think it'd be good, unless you want to just watch it on your own at home and then come down. And I was like, well, I don't really care, to be honest. I mean, it's not like I'm going to cry either way. You know, it's just news, right? So little did I know, I turn up and there's like a row of about 15 cameramen in front of me, like underneath the screen. So I'm like, I didn't think this through, right? So I'm like, now I'm sitting there and I'm like, the news, you know, you're watching the announcements, and there's all these knowing that what, you know, that if you get good news, fine. You get bad news, everyone's going to see your face go, oh, and so it was. The news come in, and I do this. Someone slowed it down to slow motion and put it on the fucking Twitter. Right? Some like unionist troll account were like, "Oh, look at the glorious moment. This cunt's dreams died." And I was like, so anyway, fair play to him, because he did get me there. I was like, oh, like someone had just shoved something rather large and hard up my ass.
Does he have a big teaser in? Does he? But nah, you know, you're Rich, you're so close, so you know you've got the skills to be an Oscar. Well,
you know what? There's a little bit of me trying to be philosophical about it. Is that it's almost like we've had so much success with the film over the past year. Everything we've been, you know, we've been nominated for, we've gone on and won pretty much, right? We've just walked around picking up awards everywhere. It's almost come too easy in a way. And it's weird as well with a film. It's not like, I keep using this as an analogy because I've got a boxer in front of me, but it's not like a fight, right? Because once I've made the film, it sort of has a life of its own. It's not like on the day I turn up to a competition and I've got to put in a performance. My performance is done. Do you know what I mean? I just got to sit there and you know what I mean? It's not in my hands. Nothing I can do. It's not about me versus the other director. Do you know what I mean? It's not, he's done his film, I've done my film. We didn't even know each other's films existed. So there's not really a rivalry in that sort of way. You're just kind of like whatever the judges think, right? It's not really in our hands. And so yeah, I mean, in a way, because it's come so easy, there'd be something, I think, about getting all the awards and getting all the way to the Oscars on your first proper film would have been a bit like, it lacks you a little bit of motivation for the next thing. It's like getting that snub. I work best when I'm pissed off at something. I don't know why, but I like to have some sense of grievance, right? That is what drives me forward. I like waking up in the morning and having some cunt's face in my head going, right, today you're getting fucked, right? And then going to sleep still thinking about like that. That to me is, I don't know why.
Just gets you going.
It just gets me going. Like I would, you know, I don't think I'm the most talented person in the world. I do think that I'll outwork any fucker. Right. And I think that's my super skill, is that, you know, I just go and go and go, and I don't ever quit. And, you know, so now I've got this slight sense of grievance. It just made me, the next morning, we got fucking hammered in Madden's, but I woke up the next morning somehow, you know, without hangover. And I was back at the desk getting on with the next thing, because I'm like, right, now I need to go out and prove that the next thing. Yeah, exactly. So what else are you going to do? What else are you going to do?
Movie in the pipeline?
Got a few things, yeah. You know, that's been one of the mad things about the last year is, you know, you're thrust into this world suddenly where you're sitting at the table with big people. Do you know what I mean? Like the biggest people in the industry now want to take meetings with you. People who wouldn't have spat on you if you're on fire. You know, 18 months ago. Like, and now, hey, how you doing? Let's have lunch. And you're like, fuck. You know, I've turned down like £60 million films.
Why? You maniac?
because I'm just like, they're you know, literally, I've been offered, like, I could be a millionaire right now,
Yeah.
and I've turned it down because it's not right. It's not what I want to
See,
do. It's like,
maybe he's on the same
right,
wavelength.
okay, well,
Maybe that could have been a Kneecap movie, but you know,
well, it is a similar thing. It's
yeah,
like sometimes you got to stick. You're like, I want to make my film, right? I've got my film that I want
yeah,
to do next, but this film they're offering me, yes, it's a lot of money, but I don't want to make a film like that. Like, that's not a me film, and I don't think it's good for the long term
yeah.
that I suddenly go and do some film that's probably going to be a bit shit, right? But I get a load of
100%,
money.
yeah,
But
yeah.
then what do I do then? What's the next movie
What's the
then?
next
What
thing?
do I get
Yeah.
off another? I got to do another shit movie then because no one takes you seriously. Because you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, so to me, it's like you only get making a film it takes years. Like from the start of Kneecap to now, 6 years. And I'm not saying it would always take that long, but even with the whole industry behind you, will still take a few years.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can only, from where I'm sitting now at 40 years old, I can maybe with a real fair win make 10 films if I'm fucking lucky.
But is there like a AIDS
Well, no, there's
kind
not.
of-
There's not.
Obviously not officially, but is there one where most
No,
directors
Ridley
kinda get it?
Scott's like 88 making Gladiator 2, right? So there's no age thing, but maybe you should. Maybe I don't. I like to think that I wouldn't be at 88 years old still wanting to make films.
Yeah,
I think I'd put my feet up
you
by
want
then.
to put yeah, definitely.
Do you know what I mean? But no, there isn't an age cap. But as I said, you only get so many opportunities to make films. That's what you leave behind,
Yeah,
right? As a body of work. That's a nice thing about making a film. Is it something you do leave behind, right? It's kind of like you hope you make films that people will watch for years to come, right? And to make, that's one thing I like, is just the idea that you leave some sort of impact there with the art that you do.
yeah. And you did with the Kneecap movie,
With Kneecap.
definitely.
And look, I may the next film I make might be fucking terrible, and I'll never make a movie again. I mean, that's the game. It's like, do you know what I mean? You're only as good as your last movie,
Yeah.
right? And really, the mark of success as a filmmaker is whether you get to make another film, right? That's really it, because that's all. That's the only currency you got, because it ain't guaranteed. Like, once your foot's in the door, it ain't guaranteed that you're gonna get the next thing made. And if Kneecap had just been like okay, hadn't have done all right, I'd probably be sitting there struggling. I'm sure I'd find a way.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be the way.
It wouldn't be like in the situation now where you got people going, right, how much, people offering the checks.
See, because of the success of that movie, are other bands or people asking you to make movies of a similar
I get a lot.
way?
I get a lot of requests from bands, and I won't name names, but or rappers and people like that getting in touch. Be that via their agents and stuff, going, would you want to make a biopic about us?
K-Hole?
And
The K-Hole? Do you know who K-Hole
No.
are? That's who rap. Well, they broke up, but we had them on the podcast.
They're Belfast lads.
Yeah, Carry 4X.
Yeah.
And have you heard of Carry 4X?
No, that's a shit name.
Carry 4X, Limbo Slice, and SP.
I have heard of these lads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had,
I've seen them on Instagram or something. Yeah.
So they had a big song in the summer. Transition on a mission.
I think I did hear
But
it.
so K-Hole was the group, and then they had a fallout. So
did they have a fallout?
we had them on a podcast separately, because they had the beef. But that would be.
Well, I mean, look,
They haven't reached out for the movie, but that's what you're saying. Usually, like, it's the rise and fall.
Well, and look, lots of groups do feel like, because it's an intense thing, like spending that much time together, right? For the lads, I've been. It's been a great privilege for me, spending 6 years as close as I have been to the lads. They're very dear friends of mine, and watching them go from local act. When I met them, they were still, they were Ireland, right? They were doing Belfast. They were, managing to do, 1,000 people, Dublin or something. But they were, they were still a small band, not making money, right? And to have been part of watching them rise, from that to playing 9,000 people at the SSE. Just before Christmas there,
and now
and global, becoming a global force.
Was it the Late Late Show or
in America? And it's been to have contributed a little bit to that with the film is great. And they'll say themselves, like, it's not me bigging up my part in it, but they'll say themselves, like, there is a lot of new people who are coming to their gigs because they've seen the film. And I think that people like feeling that they know who's in a band. It's quite hard if you think you not like a band's music. You don't really know about them. You might know a little bit about the lead singer or something because they've done interviews, but you don't really know about them as an act, right? Unless you really, really dig. But when you've got a film that basically goes, this is us, this is our story, I think it helps people really connect with them and feel like, oh, I feel that. So people are turning up really feeling like they're invested in the Kneecap story. And there's something quite nice about, it's almost like the film carries on. Right, it's like going to a Kneecap gig is almost like seeing a continuation. It's like broken off the screen, and it's again because they still look the same as they are in the film. It's still kind of almost continuous, right? And I think that's a cool thing that's unique. That's unique to this project, that you can go or you can go onto their social media and you're almost seeing extra content addition to the film, right? And I just think that's a cool thing. And for them, it's been a crazy couple of years, even bigger than for me, with their debut album coming out, and they deserve all of it. Like, they are, genuinely such amazing lads. And I've always had a huge amount of respect for the fact that they put their principles above everything, and they genuinely do, kind of like, they really don't care what the consequence of saying what they believe. And I think that's rare. That's rare to find. I think people are very career driven,
especially in this day and age with social media and everyone trying to be really like stay in between the.
Yeah, well, that's it. You know what? I find it really inspiring, and I think that they hopefully inspire a lot of young people. This idea of you've got to somehow conform to what other people want to succeed in life, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the thing. You've got to fall into line. You've got to do what you're told to succeed. Kneecap are an example of people who've always just done their own thing. They don't care. They haven't ever tried to conform to anything, but they've succeeded, right? They've just, the world has lined up behind them. They've not bent to the world. And I think that's an example to people that, you can just be yourself. You can be your own thing. And also I think that we live in a fucking really fucked up time. And, when not to take this in a dark place, but over the summer, when you see these, riots down in Dublin and things like that, and a lot of those people trying to burn down asylum centres and stuff like that look like lads in Kneecap. They're dressed in tracksuits. They're dressed like lads from Kneecap. And it's like, I think it's important that there's a counter to that. And I think that Kneecap been able to inspire people and put their message, it's a different type of politics. There's refugees welcome. They're saying, look, we were once the people turning up at the shores without a pot to piss in, right? And I think that to have those sort of role models, although Kneecap, are strange sort of role models, they are, because they offer an alternative politics. And I think for young people, young men especially, to have examples, I just think young men, it's easy to get dragged down a dark path with all of that, and to see people like Kneecap are offering a more hopeful vision, I think it's important.
And the thing with Kneecap, the authenticity, I think that's what has also made the movie so big too, because they're playing themselves, so they're actually not even acting. Do you know what I mean? So it's like a realness in the movie. And then, as you said, you're a hip hop fan. The number one rule in hip hop is keep it real. And the thing what I liked about Kneecap when I first ever heard them was rapping in their own accents, rapping in their own language, and rapping about stuff that was really around them.
Their lives.
Like,
not talking about gats and
even though I want to hear it sometimes about gats and pimping hoes
bitches
and that, but there's none of
exactly.
that. It's all just, everything's just so real. And people, I think everywhere in the world, people love that authenticity, and that's what's carried them so far.
And look, it was very important to us in the film that we kept that authenticity as much as possible. Like, even down to the language. There, people's like, do they have to fucking say cunt every other word? And I'm like, that's how they talk, right? Like, I'm not going to tell them to not talk how they talk. Like, it just is what it is. And even down to the slang, there was pushback about people outside Belfast ain't going to get the slang. And I'm like, well, that's all right. Like, some of the my favourite films are ones that kind of drop you into a world and you just have to navigate it.
Yeah.
They don't make an apology for it. They don't go like, here's a spoon, here's a fucking dictionary to teach you that, you just dropped
wonder
in.
what that means, and then you have to try and piece the
That's
slang
fine.
together.
That's fine.
put by
Like
the context.
that's authenticity. You go, and you're not, audiences aren't stupid, right? Even if you don't understand it, the context helps you.
Yeah.
And after all, and look, we can all fucking pause things and go if you
Yeah,
really,
quick
really want it.
Google,
And have so I think that, if they start, I was very much firm that this is going to be as authentic to Belfast as possible, and we don't give a shit. And I'm very proud that that's happened. Like, above all the accolades, awards, it's like if I go into the Felons for a pint, people will come up and go, congrats, love the film, do you want a drink? Do you know what I mean? And that for people to feel like the film represents them, represents the community of West Belfast, represents the humour, the spirit.
Yeah.
That's always what we set out to do first and foremost. And if the film had been loved everywhere in the world but hated in Belfast, it'd have been a fucking failure. Do you know what I mean? It'd have been selling out. I mean, I think it's sad that there's, people in the, from the unionist community who want to try and shit all over it, probably without even seeing it. I kind of come from more of a, I'm not from here. Right, I don't identify as Catholic or Protestant or any of that. Right.
See, as an Englishman, how do you feel about the royals and stuff?
I don't give a fuck about any of that. I've never felt any nationalism in my life. Like, I don't feel nationalism towards a British flag. Like, I don't feel nationalism towards any flag. Like, I've always just been. I was never brought up like that. I just don't understand nationally. Like, the flag that you live under don't really mean much to me. Be that whatever flag that is, and so I think that part of making that film was coming out with everyone who lives here naturally has an inbuilt kind of bias, but an inbuilt kind of
just generationally.
Exactly, you can't escape that. But for me, I came here, and look, my wife's a Catholic. My wife's from Andy Town, like, and so for me, it was a big re-education, because you grow up in London, you do like a chapter at school on what's happening in the north, and it's like oh, there was some terrorists, and the British government dealt with them, and then you move on to like the fucking Tudors or something. Do you know what I mean? And you're a kid, so you don't give a fuck. You're just like, well, whatever. And then I came here, and I was like, oh fuck. Remember that Mitchell and Webb sketch where they're dressed up as Nazis and they go, are we the bad guys? And I felt like that. And I was like, oh, shit. We're the bad guys. Fuck. And it was a real re-education for me to learn, the truth, really, of what happened here. And it's a place that's given me a lot. I've been welcomed into, a family who, once upon a time, the only English voices they heard were kicking the door in and fucking, beating them up. Right. So to then allow me into their family and the way they have, and never judge me for where I'm from, and being able, not just that, but I can drink down the Falls Road and go into pubs.
You said you're going there.
I've never had a problem. I've never had a problem, as long as you can take a bit of a slegging, right, and recognize that you're on other people's turf, right, and that you need to just respect that and understand. I've never had a problem. I think most people, only idiots judge people just based on an accent. Right. Now the fact that the fact that I speak a bit of Irish now, and things like that, and also, I mean, my wife's got 3 brothers, all about 6'5" and built like brick shit houses. So I just keep them on speed dial.
So tell me, is it so you say you have no problems drinking anywhere on the Falls Road or up the west? What about drinking in East Belfast?
Well, actually, we're curving back to the story I was telling. I mean, I feel like I've got an all-access pass to Belfast, because I could go East Belfast and walk in. I could go to a pub in the Shankill, and no one's going to blink twice because of my accent, right? I never have, but I kind of feel like I could probably go anywhere. And I'm sure if they found out I was the director of Kneecap, they'd feel less impressed about it. But get it. but look, back to my point is that I think it's sad for a small city like Belfast, not for everyone to celebrate 3 working class lads who've done well for themselves and are putting the city on the map. Do you know what I mean? The same way that Derry Girls put Derry on the map. Belfast helps bring tourists in. It helps, tell our stories. And I think I find it really unfortunate that for the unionist community that they're so underserved politically. They have some of the biggest bunch of grifters and imbeciles representing them who have no positive vision of what Belfast and this place could be.
Yeah.
They just know what they're against.
Yep.
And as an outsider, I come in and I go, I can't believe these people are allowed to be, politicians. They're idiots. They're like they're the lowest form of daft twat. Go in and I find it bizarre coming from somewhere else, and sad for the unionist community. They're not better served in terms of the unionism just needs a positive vision of what they'd like to see this place being, rather than just blocking, moaning, trying to do down their best exports. And Kneecap, whether you like them or not, are a great export, right? They're a great export for this place, and they can't live with it.
Terrible. It's bad crack. Is there any unionist support?
Look, I hear colloquially that there's our gaffer on the film. He's a unionist. Well, he's a prod anyway. I get he's a prod. I don't think we'll call him but he was born and he knows a load of lads from UDA lads and UVF lads and stuff like that from growing up. And he said they'll fucking love the film, right? And so I don't think it's at all every unionist, every Protestant hates the film, because to be fair, I think the film slags everyone pretty much equally. I don't think it's particularly one side or other. And so I think the majority of people just see it for what it is. It's a bit of crack. It's a film. It's telling a story. As I said, I think it's just the people who unfortunately have a platform and a voice who are the ones talking the talk, really to get engagement for themselves.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's I think that's sad. And I think there's a big question for them as well, is why isn't more art, be that films, music, whatever, coming out of unionist communities? Right? I mean, there's not to say there's nothing. There's young Spencer.
He supported Kneecap.
He supported Kneecap. I've chatted to him a bit, and he seems like a really top lad. And so there is a little bit, but that's more of an exception than a rule, right? Is why is there not more stuff coming out of? Why are their stories not being put on a stage? Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't think that's the thing. There's some inbuilt bias. I think they're maybe not being encouraged in the same way to pursue that sort of route as much. I don't know. Like I'd make a film absolutely from that perspective. It would not bother me at all to go and make a film that is East Belfast Kneecap, and tell it from the other side, because as a filmmaker, that's what you're there to do. You're there to explore perspectives, right?
Yeah. Well, a wee Young Spencer movie could be the next one.
The wee Young Spencer movie, who knows?
Well, Rich, listen, that was brilliant. Again, I just wanna. I'm glad that you said you're with me on the choice of going with the podcast over a movie. Keep us in mind for the next movie, Rich. I'll clear a schedule, because we know the next one's definitely going to get an Oscar. And congratulations on all the success.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely brilliant. Great to see. The movie's great. I actually watched it on a plane going over to Jamaica.
Don't you never tell a fucking filmmaker you watch this film on a plane?
That's good.
No, because the quality of the audio, the screen, everything's shit. You hear that a lot. People say to you, "I watch it on a plane." You're like, "Oh." You're saying you watch it on your phone?
No, well, I watched it as well, but I watched it on.
We watch it on a plane as well. All right, I'll let you off.
But I was like, everyone fucking hit Kneecaps on the fucking planes.
It's not on British Airways.
Nah, but yes, again, Rich, thanks for being here. Thanks for viewing, everyone. Make sure you check out the Patreon, £2 a month. Get in contact with me and Tyrone for tickets for our fights on the 1st of March and the week after for Tyrone's. And yes, I've been Tommy Mac. Peace. Woo! Whiskey and White going all the way.